Hi everybody, it's Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors. This is episode number 6. This is the final episode of the series, Acting, When Is It Time to Quit Acting? Life After Acting. We have again Scott Victor Nelson, who is returning, and we are going to discuss whether or not he has decided to quit. He's listened to all of the episodes that we have had so far, just like you have, and he's going to talk about them, see if any of them helped him, shed any light on anything, and we will discuss. I want to first go ahead and thank everyone for posting comments on iTunes. You guys were so great. I want to shout out to Matt A2323, Martha 212, and Princess Fifi for your comments. It really helps us with the algorithm. I want to thank you so much. So today, just like the last episode with Scott, we take a little bit more time than normal for our episodes. It's a little bit more in depth. We get into whether or not he's going to quit. And we do come to what I would say is a real epiphany for him. It takes the episode to get there. So I hope that you will enjoy the journey and that hour is entertaining and inspirational and maybe brings about to you some clarity for your own journey. I also want to say that we do talk about a sensitive issue. We talk about diversity and casting. I know that is a hot button issue. I just wanted to say if you have any feelings or thoughts about that you want to share with me, just know I'm definitely going to have a several episode arc on diversity and casting that we are going to get to. I know that Hollywood claims it's getting better. I hope that that is true. My hope is that all of us in diversity of age and race and gender and sexual preference and all those things, that all of that continues to grow and becomes representative of the very multifaceted world that we are portraying. So as you're listening, you want to shoot me an email or you're interested in being a part of that discussion, you can email me at audreyhelpsactors@gmail.com, or if you know me personally, just reach out to me and we'll see about getting you on for that. We do discuss scene study and theater in this episode. I just wanted to say to start with that it can be a really valuable tool, especially for actors who are starting out. Getting your foundation, understanding your instrument, learning how to tell a story in scene study and in theater is extremely, extremely valuable. I don't want anyone to think that I'm knocking those avenues for the actor, for an avenue of self-expression, for an avenue of personal interest. So just an FYI to you on that. I've spent many years in scene study and done more plays than I can even count. So love to those two crafts, and I hope that piques your interest. And please enjoy the episode. Oh, so I'm just going to ask real quick, thank you everyone for your likes, for your comments, for your shares. If you are listening to this episode, then I would love for you to just take this series, this podcast, and send it to one friend, just one person that you think would find this podcast valuable. I'm not even asking you to send it to 2 people, just one singular person. We all know so many actors that need a helping hand, that need some love, that need some guidance, that need some support, that need some information. I am making it for you, for your actor friends. So please, if you just one single person that you share it to. All right, guys, enjoy the podcast. Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Scott Victor Nelson.
He's back.
I'm back.
He looks so excited.
It was like I felt like I was going to the dentist this morning.
I bet that is
It's like
true.
I did not want to do that.
No, I know. I had only belief that you wouldn't.
I was like, how can I get out of this?
Yeah, I'm only sure that that's
like,
true.
Once we scheduled, I was like, no, it's my time. I don't want to.
No, I totally, listen, I only anticipated that, and I totally get it.
I didn't think that's what would happen.
Oh, I did.
Did you really?
Oh, 100%.
Why?
Because it's a lot of confront. It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I thought that your first interview, we really got to some really just honest and realistic portrayals of what everyone goes through.
Yeah.
And I think you putting a real voice to that. First of all, had a lot of really great response from everybody, just so you know. We were even sort of pondering like, well, maybe we'll just get an email from him and we can just like read it aloud. Like we were really...
Really?
Yeah.
Did you really think I just wasn't going to come?
We thought you might not. Yeah.
Then this morning rolled around and I was like, I had to finish listening to yours.
Yes.
Because my one thing was if I came back here, I wanted to honor the commitment of having listened to everything prior. That's great. Right?
Yeah.
So I had to listen to yours. But then when I was driving here and I was just like, and I've decided I absolutely hate your theme song. I was like,
that's real funny.
This is condescending. This is hostile. Like actors don't know anything. Like, I was like,
that's funny.
and I was like, all right, my goal is I'm just gonna be honest.
Okay, good. I can take that.
That's all.
So let's talk about where you were when we last sort of met. You had thought about, you were sort of like 60-40, maybe moving on, and then you've been listening to these episodes. Anything in these last few episodes that have really struck you, brought you clarity, brought you more into confusion?
I really liked, I think it was the second person who became the grief counselor.
Yeah.
What I liked was it sounded like something significant sort of happened in her life, and that really sort of created a change for her. And that she used that she became a grief counselor. Like, that was what was really cool. Mm-hmm. She took that thing that sort of knocked her out or knocked her down and used that to build herself back up.
So where do you feel like you are now?
Sitting on your couch having coffee.
Do you have any questions? I mean, I know you and I had talked about, like, you had sort of emailed me and wanted to sort of have some of my thoughts about things, and I know we had talked about maybe New Mexico and other markets.
Yeah, we had talked about New Mexico. I feel like so much of the work that I'm doing right now, you know, I mean, I'm still auditioning for voiceovers all the time.
Yes.
Had a couple auditions for a couple plays.
Yes.
I'm assistant directing a show for the Fringe Festival at Rogue Machine, and loosely put a plan in to go to New Mexico and check it out.
Yeah, great.
Like in the next 2 months.
Great.
And other than that, like, been enjoying my life. In a class, I'm working on a scene from Angels in America. I feel like I'm doing work that's never been stronger, or that I'm more connected to, or is more personal. And the on-camera stuff has been just non-existent. Like, any of the on-camera stuff's been non-existent.
As far as auditions or classes, or...
As far as auditions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've done on-camera classes before?
I've done on-camera classes before. Yeah.
And are you feeling more inspired? Are you feeling more surrender? Are you, like, where are you?
Feeling really surrendered.
Good.
Feeling really surrendered into, like, of coming back to the present moment over and over and over again. And realizing, honestly, that, look, if I had a series and I was sitting here having this conversation with you right now, it wouldn't change the fact that I'm sitting here drinking coffee and talking to you.
Right.
Do you know?
And I do know that because I have, you know, a multitude of friends on series right now who are listening to this podcast, who are reaching out to me, who are
really?
Like, yes.
Wow.
Because part of what happens is that people, I mean, they have jobs that are like, I mean, jobs that I would just give my arm for.
Yeah.
And part of what happens that's really hard for when you get that thing is that it's still work. Like, it's still going to a job and has lots of job drama.
Right.
And has lots of things that really is no different than waiting tables or whatever office you work in. There's dynamics, there's power plays, there's politics, there's, you know, a bunch of bullshit and a bunch of drama.
So much egos. Like,
so
everybody's egos, right? And so much on the line.
So much pressure.
Money. So, yeah.
And what is really hard for that group is that it has to stay secret, because you can't let anyone know that you're anything but over the moon happy. And that's very isolating, and I find a lot of them go into a real depression and a crisis of self, because they finally have their dreams, and upon having their dreams, like we had talked about the first time, it didn't solve anything.
Right.
But more even than that, it didn't solve anything, and they have to keep quiet about it.
Yeah.
Because you can't let the network or any of your cast members, you can't let even a whiff of that get out.
Yeah.
Because then you're ungrateful, and then, then who wants to work with an ungrateful person?
Right.
And
Right.
you're replaceable.
The only thing that would be different would be that I would feel some sort of armor or some sort of thing that I could go,
at least I have this.
Yeah, which would just in
and money.
some
and
money,
yeah.
which in some ways, I think our interaction might not be the same. There might not be the same level of intimacy. There might not be the same level of connection, because what I'm finding in my life is that if there's something that I'm using to try to keep myself feeling safe, right? Like if I'm like, oh, I'm over here and I'm scared, but I've got this job and I've got that, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm almost using something to distance myself from the feeling.
That's right.
Or from whatever's happening, which distances me from you and my ability to connect with you and have a genuine, honest conversation about something.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thought of unconditional love, right? And unconditional self-love. And I had a therapist long ago who said, codependency is any time you seek outside of yourself for happiness. And I was like, I don't understand. I literally did not understand what that meant. And I came home and I told Jesse, and Jesse was like, I don't understand. And I went and talked to my parents, and my parents were like, I don't understand. Nobody understood what the fuck that even meant.
Right.
And I'm like, well, if you don't get it from outside of yourself,
where do you get it?
Where do you get it? And now I completely understand. I mean, it's been several years since then, and now I absolutely understand that.
Yeah.
But my value and worth and others' value and worth as it relates to their success or failure in their profession as an actor has been the majority of my understanding of my existence for as long as I can remember.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And the degree to which I overvalue people who are doing really well, undervalue people who are not.
Sure.
And also get the same people who overvalue me because I'm happening to be doing well at a certain point. And then the fear that if I don't keep that up, then they will be undervaluing me as soon as that falls.
Right.
Because, ebb and flow.
Right.
Yin and yang, waves in, waves out.
What I'm working on right now is the ability to just continue to be kinder to myself. Mm-hmm. And appreciate the day that I'm having and whatever is happening, and open my eyes more to what is going on and listening, and let go of this huge personal agenda that I've always had for life,
Mm-hmm.
So there's a part of me in coming back here that goes, oh, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I haven't done mailings, and I haven't done this, and I haven't done that. No, but you know what I mean?
I
and
do.
There's a part of me that's like, oh, and Audrey's going to tell me these things.
Oh,
if I'm open to it, she's going to tell me these. She's going to tell me these things that I have to do, right?
Oh,
at least my skin's okay. So,
great.
but you're going to tell me these things, and am I open to that? And then the other side of that is, well, the work that I have been doing, I think, is the most important work.
Always the most
which
important
is the work of self-love, of self-compassion, of being of service to others, and enjoying my day.
Yeah, I've learned a lot about the brain recently and the way that brain synapses works, and it makes so much sense to me about the panic brain versus the creative brain. And it's like, if you're feeling bad about yourself or in panic about you where you are or not, your brain actually cannot access the creative part. Because the back part of the brain, which is the fear-based part, is in circles. And then once that happens, a literal wall gets connected in the midbrain. And so the front part of the brain, which is the creative part, actually can't get back there in order to talk to itself and be creative. And so that's why when you've had auditions and you leave your audition sometimes, the moment you walk out, genius
You realize
hits.
what you should have done?
And it would have been genius.
Yes.
And suddenly, the more you walk to your car, the ideas come and you're like, and that would have been brilliant, and that would have been brilliant. But it was because all of that was trying to get past that wall.
Yeah.
But because you had so much fear going through, that's literally just a physiological thing the creative part couldn't communicate. And once you got out of the fearful situation, the creative part could then start to flow.
And
yeah.
I think that the danger is, and I really want to make sure that people hear this, is thinking that they're not supposed to feel that.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm afraid, oh, wait, Audrey said,
right.
if I'm afraid, I'm going to block my creative impulse.
Right. And then I'm afraid of being afraid.
And then I'm afraid of it, right?
Yeah,
and then you put,
right.
it's like, you know, you listen to Deepak Chopra and he's like, practice non-judgment, you know? And you're like, well, that's great, but I'm judging things all the time because I have to decide when to pull up for the stop sign or when to do this, or right?
That's right.
So I think for me, you know, and why I think my creativity is sort of at a higher point than it was before is that I'm actually willing to sit with a lot of that fear.
That's great.
And that anxiety. This is terrible, and I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
That ability to hold both at the same time.
Yes.
So for me, and I really want to make sure people hear that, like, because it's something that I would hear and go, oh, then the fear is in the way of the creativity, or the fear's in the way of...
Don't have fear.
Okay, so I shouldn't have fear. And then I got fear about having fear, and then I'm in resistance to that. Right? So then again, I'm just even further away from being able to hear you or be here. And I'm just in my own head, in my own hell.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
As opposed to saying, and I think partly calling it out is important too.
Very much. Yes.
Like telling you that, like when I came here and I was like, I'm scared to do this podcast again, right? It's like, well, then it just...
That's okay.
Yeah. Well, because it's reality.
It is reality. And that is what we're in the business of doing, is bringing ourselves in the moment who we are.
To the fake world with the rain machine, which I loved, by the way.
I
loved that whole thing when you were like, it didn't exist a week ago, and now there's fake... And then the visualization of, you know, that... Because there is something really magical about that.
But I love both, right?
Yeah,
like,
I do too.
I love that there is that is created in the sort of almost like science world of that, right? Like those creatives who are doing that.
Yeah.
And then exactly what we're talking about being present with who you are, all of what that is, whatever that is in this moment, whether that's right now in fear, whether that's right now in anger or joy or whatever that is, but really being, like you're saying, calling it out and being there with yourself to be there with other people. And I do think that is really the gift of the actor to everything, because most people cannot access that. They don't have permission to.
I think they're terrified to.
Well, also in a business sense, it is not acceptable.
Yeah. So based on all of this, and your brilliant expertise. No, but for real, I'm what? No,
it's just funny.
I'm serious, because you've accomplished things that I have not yet on far side of the on-camera side of things, right? Mm-hmm. So, what would you suggest?
For you?
Yeah.
I think New Mexico is a really good idea for you. I mean, I guess I would start by saying, do you want to do on-camera stuff? See?
I definitely want to do stage. I love plays. And that's different. Right?
So that's why I'm saying, like, do you want to do on-camera stuff? Because my feeling is that you are infinitely castable. There's so much that you could be doing. And if you're not doing on-camera stuff and have not done the on-camera stuff to the degree to which you could be, that to me speaks to, do you want to be doing it? And if so, what is it about it that you want to be doing? Is it that old dream that we had talked about being on the cover of People magazine and being that guy? Or is it because you really like that work? Or is it because you want people to see your face in these movies? Or because you want to become this actor? You know, what is that?
I think I heard you say something in one of your things about we don't need... You can quit act, like...
Yeah,
if you're a bioengineer, don't quit.
Right.
But if you're, and I had a reaction to it because I don't agree with you.
Okay.
Because there's a unique way in which, if we really do the work, right?
Yes.
If you're not just replicating human behavior and doing it for the accolades and the things like that, right?
Absolutely.
But if I have an experience that is unique to me. Mm-hmm. And I would like to use that to be able to play characters or reveal lives that might help other people.
Well, and
right?
I think that's, and I guess,
I guess the thing is I'm
no, sure, go ahead.
But I guess the thing is I guess I always felt like there was more room for that in theater than there wasn't on camera. So yes, I want to do on camera. Yes.
Yes, you want to do on camera.
I do want to do on camera. It's just, those 2 or 3 line roles and those things, and
I think it's then what we're talking about really is momentum.
Yeah.
Right? Because the thing about because you've had your success in voiceover, and so I know that once you know this sort of success that you have in one field, you understand like the way it goes.
Yeah.
And so similarly with commercial, with voiceover, with on camera, theatrical, there's momentum to be built of just a few credits, a few things, getting a little bit better representation, getting a few bigger things, getting a little bit better representation. And that momentum, if you focus on it, can go actually pretty fast. We're talking like a year to 2 years of that really going for you. And the trick is finding out what is the easiest, fastest, most logical way for you to start to build that momentum. So the reason I had said New Mexico to you is because everyone wants to go to Atlanta. Everyone's like, let's go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
But few people are like, let's go to New Mexico.
Yeah.
And particularly of your age group and your look. I just had a conversation with 2 women from New Mexico, and we talked about who would do well. And they said, if you're a white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes in your 40s, head to New Mexico.
Really?
Yeah. I think that it wouldn't take a lot for you to then just get enough momentum to feel like, oh yeah, being back on set. Oh yeah, getting these new credits.
Yeah.
And you could earn, so you could get a kind of a role on a movie, on a big budget feature, that feature would then be a handful of days of work, maybe 2 weeks of work where you're just in a lot of it.
Yeah.
And that would just sort of get you jumped back on set, and then maybe seeing like, is this what I want to do? Is this where I want to be?
Yeah.
And then maybe a day player here, maybe a bigger role there.
Yeah.
You really only need 3, maybe 4 of those total to then feel like you can come back here with those in your pocket and have momentum behind you.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I've got Scott Victor Nelson here. He just got off set of blah, blah, blah. Because what I've noticed is that they don't ever say, he worked local hire in New Mexico for these roles. They're just like, he did these and he did those and he did these.
Yeah.
And kapow, and now he's there.
I also don't know if I want to up and move my whole life.
I don't know that you have to. I mean, I did 2 summers.
You did 2 summers.
I did 2 summers. And that worked very well for me.
Yeah.
And I have representation out here, and I still have that representation out there, but I did 2 summers.
Yeah.
And that was just enough, because what I felt like was there was my acting caliber talent, and then there was my resume, and there was a giant discrepancy between the 2.
Totally.
And I was really embarrassed by that.
Yeah.
And I knew I just needed to get my resume to start to match what I felt was my caliber of talent, so that I could get into the rooms that were sort of that level.
Right. Yeah, everybody who's always repped me is like, we have to build your co-stars, but you're a guest star actor. You're like a series regular actor.
Yeah.
So it's like...
Yes, that was exactly my issue. Exactly.
And I can always do more. I mean, if I'm working on an audition that's a guest star or a series regular...
See, these roles in these movies that they're shooting in New Mexico, or even some of these shows, I mean, they need a guy who's like in the whole movie, and he has like 4 lines throughout the whole thing, but he works the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then you get all of that. You get all of that.
Yeah.
Right? And you're a yogi. You're certainly physically capable. You could put you on a horse. Like all that.
Yeah.
You would look really good in all that. And you would be capable in all that. And on top of which you'd have a resume as an actor that all of these other actors don't have. So that would be where I would recommend you start, if that's what you want.
I mean, it feels far away.
Yes.
Right? It feels like something that's far away from this moment sitting here.
Sure.
Not that it's not doable or something to explore, but it feels far away.
I really identify with what you said about your rep saying that you were a guest star series regular actor and you just needed a couple of co-star credits.
Yeah.
I felt very much the same way, and particularly in Los Angeles, what people don't really understand is mathematically the majority of co-stars actually go to drama, not to comedy. There's something like 16 roles, not just co-stars, but roles per drama episode, and like 2 to 3 per comedy.
Sure, yeah.
And in LA, the dramas that shoot in LA shoot people that look like they're in LA, which are usually urban.
Yeah.
And the lead cast is usually white. And the surrounding cast in the co-star level is usually diverse. And that is changing. But what that means is that I have a lot of friends who are diverse who found it very hard to get past the co-star level and get into the guest star series regular, and they've got like 16 co-stars.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of friends who are white who are of the, I would say, attractive but not modelly to modelly. Like if you're in that group, that's what all the leads look like. And so they don't tend to cast those as the co-stars.
Because they don't want the people to look like the leads.
Well, not only that, you just don't want an all-white episode, which is great. They don't want an all-white episode, and they shouldn't. It should be reflective of Los Angeles. It's usually shooting here. It should look like Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is a very diverse place. And part of why I went to New Mexico for those couple of summers is because what New Mexico is really lacking comparative to other markets, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, is white people of a certain casting, I would say. A good way to look at casting is like, how much money is your character making? Like, what is the annual income of your casting? Have you heard that before? Yeah, so like my casting, I'm probably not going to make less than $30,000 a year as a casting, but I'm probably not going to make more than maybe $200,000 a year in my casting. That sort of is my like financial casting range. So that's as far as professions are concerned.
You mean the characters you would play?
The characters I would play. I'm not going to be cast as a person like on welfare or below.
Right.
And I'm not going to be cast as somebody who's just uber rich.
Right.
I'm going to be cast somewhere in upper lower class to lower upper class. That sort of is my range. And a lot of the casting in New Mexico, there's a lot of Native American, there's a lot of Hispanic, and even a lot of the Hispanic actors are also fair skinned, but they still look Hispanic. So if you have fair skin and you don't at all look Hispanic, then you are an anomaly. And just to sort of punch that out, because my family's from New Mexico, we went to like Indianapolis for a family reunion one year. And my little sister at that time was blonde haired, and she was horrified because she'd only been the only blonde her whole life. And suddenly she was surrounded by blondes. And she was just like astonished by that. So there is math involved.
Yeah. I went online and I checked out some agencies in New Mexico.
Yes.
And it looked like they represented some white guys.
Yeah.
So it looked like, I was like, there's some out there, right?
There are some out there.
But when I clicked on their resumes, well, none of them were working. They did stunts or things like that. None of them were actually had the credits of the things that I would think they would have of the shows out there.
And what I would say is that's correct, and that's why you would stand out. I think a lot of them are stunt actors.
Yeah.
I think that you could be on a lot of the stuff that's out there in these co-star roles, but as an actor, not as a stunt person.
Right.
And if you got just a couple of those,
it would change the game here.
And would, I think, give you just that momentum and confidence, because part of what's so destructive here about the co-star to guest star game in Los Angeles is that, just like you said, it is hard to be passionate when you just go out for 3 lines and 3 lines and 3 lines and 3 lines. And it doesn't even seem like it fucking matters.
Right.
Because everyone can say those 3 lines. Like, if you can't say those 3 lines, then you need to go back to class,
Right.
Like, and listen, I've been there where I can't say those 3 lines, so no judgment to those people. Like, I've been in that place in my life.
Some of the hardest things in the world are those 3-line things.
100%.
Those one-line co-stars are actually like the hardest thing in the world, because you're like,
blah, blah,
visiting out. Like, I think one of the last ones was crazy, and I was like, visiting hours are over, ma'am. And it was like, there was a comment. It was like, how long do you pause?
Yeah.
What do you
all
do?
that shit.
You know,
it's
like,
too much.
like visiting hours over. Ma'am.
Ma'am.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, you use the ma'am, like, I'm going to try to grab her attention.
Yeah.
Like, you try to do these things. You try to turn it into a thing.
And then when you only
not,
have a few every once in a while, then they feel really precious. And that's the other thing that's nice about going to a smaller market for a second is actually you'll get 1 to 2 auditions a week. And again, they're for small roles, but you're doing them enough. And there's like, I think 3 or 4 casting directors out there. And once they know that you're a person who doesn't fuck up, they like they'll bring you in. And like a lot of the criticism that a lot of the New Mexico actors have about those casting directors is that they only bring in the same people over and over, and then they only cast the same people over and over. And it's like, well, they trust them.
It's the same thing that happens in LA.
That's what I try to tell them. I'm like,
it's exactly the same
oh, you mean
thing.
people have networks of people they trust, like
right, and then
relationships they built?
And they go to those people because they can trust them to go on set and not fuck shit up.
You mean that's just like any job anywhere ever at all, actually?
Yeah.
So I thought that would be good for you for that bit of confidence, and it wouldn't necessarily mean a commitment to living in New Mexico forever.
And is there anything else as far as staying here goes?
Yeah, staying here, I think you really have to work on your attitude. I would go mission. I've done this for myself. Operation Audrey attitude change, and in particular about the kind of work I wanted to be receiving.
How so?
Boy, I've done all sorts of things. I do a lot of letter writing to myself. You know, those visualization sort of tricks of like, I would write my fake resume of what I wish it would look like in a year. I've walked around the studios to sort of feel more like this is a place where I belong. I belong in studios.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel far from me.
Sure.
But it worked. I mean, I've had a lot of friends who've had luck with things like that.
Yeah.
Just to sort of get that to be more of a thing that's exciting and part of my future rather than something that feels like heavy and shitty and like kind of far away and like the gates are locked, and really to keep myself in the business side inspired and the business side full of future possibility so that I'm sort of creating this expectation of it's no big deal. This is my life. My life has these things in it. That did make me feel inside my body like a working actor instead of feeling like a struggling actor. And I think once you create that, then my experience in auditions got easier, all those sorts of things, because I didn't feel like a struggling actor trying to make it happen. I felt like, oh, I do this.
Sure.
I'm a working actor.
Yeah.
But I'd say it seems to me, like looking at you, that you don't seem to have a focus on the on-camera work. And so that seems to me you're not getting those opportunities, but it doesn't seem to me that you have a focus on getting those opportunities.
Well, I think I did. I think I got a little disheartened.
Yes.
I think.
Well, did you hear that part in my episode where I said that about actors, that my friends don't have work ethic problems.
Yeah.
They have attitude problems, and the attitude problems are understandable.
Yeah.
Because you get heartbroken, and the heartbreak is hard to then continue to fight through that momentum.
Yeah, and the thing is too, you know, yes. Yeah.
Right.
And I want to work on camera. I've always wanted to do more on camera stuff. It's why I moved to LA. You know, I mean, it's the thing. Yeah, of course I want that. I think, you know, I think part of it is my demographic. I think part of it is I moved out here when I was 30.
Yes.
And, you know, and like listening
and
to
those kids already had.
Well, exactly. That same thing you were talking about with like the Jennifer Lawrence. So, like, she got the Academy Award at 22, but she started when she was 7. Like that kind of thing, right? So I was competing against people
who'd already had 10 years.
And 10 years of resume building.
That's right.
Right? So there was part of that. I also think people just kind of thought I was going to like land something big, you know? Part of it, I think, is I told you I was terrible at auditioning because there was just too much pressure.
And are you better now?
Yeah, much better.
Good.
Yeah. All that stuff's fine.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I was just wretched at auditioning.
Yeah,
just
right.
wretched. Yeah. And so that's, I guess, part of what I say about getting a jump start in another market that can be nice is like now, because I was terrible at auditioning. Yeah. And so then once I got better, then I was able to sort of, and also the pressure was a lot less come in a smaller market too, because I felt like,
You're in a smaller market.
I'm in a smaller market. And,
I know.
And it's hard. Yeah. And like, I know the people I'm up against here, and I believe like everyone went to Yale, everyone went to Juilliard, everyone was at Steppenwolf. Like I'm against like the group of girls that are fucking ninjas, right? Yeah. And out there I was like, all right. I felt confident, I didn't feel like stuck up about it, but I felt like this doesn't feel like as a lost cause as it did a lot of times in LA. Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting, Audrey. I don't know why on camera never really caught, because I did put a lot into it. And I did invest, and I did invest, classes and headshots and reps and all of the things. Did you do the
workshops, or were you against them?
Oh, yeah. You did. I did casting workshops,
Did you have success from them? Did they call you in?
A handful of them.
Do you feel like your casting was clear, or is it clear now?
I feel like, it got clearer. I think at first casting director workshops, I was sort of like, okay, I have to do this thing so that they see me. But then I wouldn't show up and really do the work because I was just so irritated that I even had to do a casting director workshop, right?
And that's the attitude thing that I was talking about. Yeah.
And then I got over that.
Good.
And then, I was doing them, and I would get great feedback. As far as the type goes, I think I'm clear,
I think you're definitely clear. I mean, I can't speak to you in the past, but I think, like, looking at you, like, I feel that you have a very clear casting.
And this is what my shots look. I mean, this is what my shots look like. Yeah. And I just did new ones again. Like it's all up to date. Nothing is, I think the most challenging thing is my last co-star is from a few years ago. And so there's nothing that sort of is current.
Well, I guess that's what I was saying about going and getting some momentum. Yeah. I think like you have a couple options. You can either hire somebody to get you a really good reel, which does work, and really...
You mean create one?
Create one.
Does it really work?
I could show you some that you would be very impressed by.
Really?
I mean, there's like these real places that I don't necessarily trust, but if you find a producer that you trust, who will, and you tell them, get me a good DP, get me some scripts, let's do 3 scenes, this is what I want. I've seen some really incredible work
and
come out of that.
And what does that cost somebody?
Several grand.
Yeah,
several grand. But several grand is worth it if then, all we're really talking about is if you then book 2 co-stars, that covers your several grand.
But do people watch those reels and go, oh, that's a good actor? Or they watch those reels and go, that's not a project that I recognize. Do you know what I mean?
No, they don't care.
They don't care?
Especially now that there's so much being made, nobody has time to keep up with all of it.
Yeah.
Nobody has time to keep up with any of it. So there's so much with Amazon, Hulu, HBO, FX, TNT, TBS. There's like Pop TV. There's there's so much fucking content.
But still, everything that you named has some sort of recognition.
I don't think so.
Well,
there's so many things that like I see billboards every day.
Yeah.
That I'm like, it's on Amazon. I'm like, what the fuck is that show? I've never heard of that show. And they actually don't. They're too busy to give a fuck about you. Like, all they want to know is, like, does this footage match the thing I'm casting?
Yeah.
They're not going to be like, I don't know, this seems suspect. Let me see what this is.
But I just feel like, I don't know, I just feel like the second that they see, like, it's a network thing or it's a show they recognize, there's automatically more clout. No?
There is always more clout in that. So I guess what we're talking about is, like, just the smaller steps, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, if you were on Mad Men, when Mad Men was on, that was great for you. I have friends who were on Mad Men when Mad Men was on, and that was great for them. And now it's off, and so that's sort of done for them.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the thing. But do you have footage that clearly shows your casting in a way that people go, oh, I know what to do with him. Let me put him into this thing, or let me consider him.
Yeah.
And it is an investment, but I think it's a really valuable investment and something worth your time. And I would say, like, if you don't feel like you're going to go to New Mexico, then I would definitely say investing in a reel is something that would be really smart for you. Because, like I said, I think actually you're in a really great age category for your casting. Like, a lot of people are just at their casting when they're 22. And that's just sort of the luck of it. I knew I wasn't ever going to be that person. And some people are. And some people don't hit their casting until they're in their 40s. And a lot of them are just so burnt out by then that they're just like, fuck it. But I think that if you can use relationships you have and really focus on like, who is Scott now? What is his casting now? Where are the holes that I can fill for people now?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's very solvable. You just then have to find the headshots, which I think you have, the footage and the reps. And once all that is in line with the relationships to those casting directors who cast the right shows that you're right for, that actually goes pretty smoothly. You just have to sort of sync it up in the right direction. And kind of learn as you go, right? Like I started to learn like, oh, if I audition for anything, period, I book it. So I started to focus on that more. And the more I focused on that, the more I booked more. And the better my resume got, which is just that momentum I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, I related a lot to what you said about feeling like your resume didn't match your talent and that discrepancy, and that you had shame around it.
A lot of shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing is worse than having people tell you constantly, you're so great. Like, you are so, and I'm not just saying this to everybody so I can be like, toot my own horn, but just like, everyone has this, right? Where people are like, oh, you're so good. Why aren't you working? And even if they don't say, why aren't you working? There's this feeling that you feel like everyone's just like, what's Audrey's problem? Like, why isn't she working? What's her deal?
Well, I mean, like, look, the play that you and I did together, who I took over for, was a series regular on a show for a number of years.
Yep.
Guy understudied at the Geffen.
Yes.
Major actor. You know, I'm working in these places and I'm doing these things and it's right there and it's like, so I get it.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating.
I just knew a couple of things. I knew that my resume just had to start to sort of match my caliber of talent.
Yeah.
And also, equally as important, my audition skills had to start to match my caliber of talent.
Yeah.
And once I got those two to a place of even sort of being on the level of what I feel like is my training and skill, that I could be a competitor in my casting.
Who did you go do audition stuff with?
You know what I did for audition? Well, I do recommend to people, the BGB studio does a great on-camera.
I love Risa.
Reese is great. And then I also really recommend Amy Linden's co-star class. She gives you an hour, and then you have to learn it in an hour, and then you compete against everybody, and then the class sort of decides who they would, send to producers or whatever, right? And I like that because she's got a really strategic storytelling approach. Like, it's not about, like, you being a great actor. It's about, like, what is the story that you're trying to tell? I found that was really helpful. But the best thing I did actually was I took 2 years and learned sides Monday through Thursday night. And I memorized co-stars and I memorized guest stars, one thing of sides every night. And then the next morning I gave myself one take and then I watched it.
Wow. Wow.
Ta-da!
That's also amazing self-discipline.
Well, I have chronic self-discipline, we'll say. But yeah, I just knew that it was solvable. And I believe a lot in deliberate practice. Yeah. And I knew that I also wanted to figure out my fucking casting. So I did everything. I pulled up sides from like characters I should never be cast in. Yeah. And just looked at how they looked on me. Yeah. And just watched myself. And I could see and I also tried to learn really hard sides, like signs from Scandal, things like that with all the language. Yeah. So that way when I got like film sides where I could actually like exist and talk and just have breath, Yeah. There wasn't like all this lawyer language going really, really fast. Yeah. That felt like easy, right? I remember commercial auditions, like having 3 lines. I was like, blah, blah. I was like 3 lines for my commercial audition, blah, 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 and I hope I remember it. And now I like look at the 3 lines and I'm done. And so now also when I get my auditions, if I get 14 pages, I'm not panicked about having to learn 14 pages because I know it usually takes me about an hour. Yeah. It takes me about an hour. Yeah. And that's fine. And then I can sleep at night because I know how to learn sides. It takes me about an hour
to learn 14 pages? Yeah.
But I had to practice that. Yeah. Or pretty well memorized. Yeah? Yeah. Which I remember seeing other girls do that at workshops. I remember girls at workshops would get like 6 pages. They'd get 15 minutes and they'd come back and be fucking memorized. Yeah. And I was like, bitch, what are you doing? And I also let go of being word perfect, which is a real theater problem, right?
Totally.
Let go of being word perfect. And I really believe in what you focus on expands.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that if I focused on auditions, I would get more auditions. Mm-hmm. And I did get more auditions. And as I got more auditions, I booked more.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of that thing I was talking about to you about, like, going around the studio lots and stuff like that.
Which I really liked, because I was thinking about it in terms, we were talking about it from an acting perspective, working on a role, right? Mm-hmm. So it would make sense.
Of course.
It makes
inhabit the role of the working actor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's right. I really felt that as long as it felt like far away, it would be far away.
Yeah.
And also I also changed my attitude as far as like feeling like I had to have the big it thing now, and started to tell myself I was going to have a slow and comfortable transition into being a full-time working actor, so that it wasn't so I didn't have the panic anymore about like, I don't have my series yet. Like every day wasn't about like, I don't have my series yet. I could start to be like, oh, okay, this is the game. Building credits, building relationships, building more credits, building more relationships, clearer casting, more money to get clearer casting, better footage, and all that sort of became a comfortable process that also my nerves could handle as I went from rung to rung. Also.
Did you find that there were any roles that you were surprised that you would be cast as, or things that you thought you would be cast as that you never would be?
Yeah, I had a real journey, I'd say, with my casting. I think that everyone's 20s are about rebelling against who they are. Yeah. And that's really why a lot of people waste their time when they get here, is because you want to be this other thing that you're actually not. Yeah. I really wanted to be so cool. And it's hard for theater, because in theater, I stand a certain way. I stand with a lot of confidence. I'm 5'9", 5'10", and I have a lot of presence on stage. And so that lends itself to a certain casting. Yeah. But actually on film, I have like freckles. I have a kind of high voice. I have big wide eyes, and I have big round cheeks. And that is really just adorable. And there's no other way around that. And who knew? Who knew? Yeah. And so part of what happened when I was taping myself for those couple of years is I would tape myself doing like these lawyer roles, because I thought I'm like so smart and articulate. And boy, there's just like very little that's actually threatening about me on camera. And that doesn't mean that you can't take me seriously. Right. It's just, I started to see like, oh yeah, I see why you cast that person, because that person already had a physical camera presence that was threatening. Yeah. So the actor didn't have to do a lot of work. Right. And that's what I would say about television in particular, is they're not looking for the actor to do a lot of the work. They don't have the time to work it out. So the actor's physical presence has to do a lot for them. Yeah.
I was having a conversation with my reps that aren't my reps anymore, but we were talking about something, and it was like a role of like someone who was like simple or dumb, and they were like, yeah, you're never gonna, they're like, you're like, you have such a soul that comes through, like you have to, and it's like, and I'm like, so I've gotten clear, it's like, I'd be a doctor, but I'm not gonna be I'm gonna be the doctor who like works in the inner city and helps the kids, right? Or I'm gonna be the doctor that's doing, Doctors Without Borders.
I really think that it is the hardest thing to figure out your casting, and part of what's also hard about it is it's ever evolving. I really think that if you want to be going into television, that it takes real, fierce, diligent self-examination to sort of separate yourself and watch yourself and say, like a casting director or a director would, do I believe me in this part? And not only that, even if I believe me in this part, am I the best choice for this part? Because that's what a career in television really is. It's not about you being just really great. It's about you being the perfect fit for the part. Because they don't have to cast somebody who's good for the part. They don't even have to cast a great actor for the part. They'd actually often would rather cast the person who just physically and vocally and is perfect for that part, because they don't have time to develop you, particularly when we're dealing with these co-star, guest star roles. By the time you're a series regular, they'll write for you and they'll figure out who you are and they'll develop you, and then you can be the genius actor and get all your awards because you have an incredible team of people writing for you. The term I use is a quick read. Here's the thing, like, if you want to be a television actor, what you focus on expands, and you have to then become a person who is a study of television. And that's what I did. I just consume television. I read all of the pilots this year. Last year I think I read like 68 comedy pilots. This year I read, like 58 or something like that. I read all of them, and then I read a few dramas. And I really know, like, who's the writers, who's the showrunners, who are the creators. And you got to get in. I just can't imagine that you could get that far in and then not be working. But most people sort of sit on the outside and feel like, it's really interesting. How do I get in?
It's interesting because I talked to a friend of mine who's a writer, and she had a similar thing. She's like, if there's a comedy you like I love Veep, right? She's like, pull the episode of Veep, read it. She's like, and really look at how they write it and really look at what they do and like immerse yourself in it.
That's right.
So when you get an audition or you're doing something, she's like, she's like, plus just working on the material.
See, that's why I was doing those auditions, working on material every night, because I didn't want anymore to be getting them and be in like scarcity or have them seem special either. Like if I got an audition, I didn't want to be like, oh, I got an audition today.
Right.
It was like, oh, yeah, I got one today and this one's real. So that's nice.
Right.
I did one and then I do one and then I do one and then I did one. And really make it your business. Make it your immersed, focused business. Because you can work in television and film, which is dead, but in television. And if you're not, I think that that's really all on you. But you're a very good focuser. Right?
When I want to be.
That's right.
When I want to be.
That's right.
I think the thing that's been frustrating is targeting very specific things and then having it not happen. Like targeting like Walking Dead, right?
Right.
And being like, okay, I'm perfect for that show.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah. Let me figure out. Let me tweet Sharon Bialy. Let me just get on her radar. Let me do all this and still like never get in the office. And
listen, I understand. I mean, I had a teacher who said it's like you tap, 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 and one day it cracks.
Yeah.
And then it's open. And that's what I experience with my friends and for myself.
Yeah.
I try to get in to UDK for like 14 years, you guys.
Yeah.
I have been dropping off headshots. I've been dropping off cupcakes. I've been self-spinning. I've been doing workshops. I mean, I couldn't pound that harder if I tried. My reps tried to get me in. Everyone tried to get me in, right? Then I finally took headshots in the 1970s, 60s style, and they were casting feud. And now I had a footage that was also I have a time period reel, so it's me and all these time periods. And I got in, and the first audition I booked. And that was just like crack, 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 crack. Because I get it. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been like, what does it take?
Well, or offices like, like I booked The Mentalist out of that office.
Right.
And haven't been back since.
I understand.
Yeah,
that's right.
Which that part's crazy frustrating too.
My personal feeling is all jobs have things that are frustrating about them.
Yes.
And so
that's a good point.
Do I want to have this job that's frustrating, or do I want to have another job that's frustrating?
Right.
So I chose this job. Because
it's all frustrating.
I think they're all frustrating.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
They're all frustrating.
I
have so many friends who quit acting to become writers, and I'm like, good luck, because it's frustrating.
It's still frustrating.
It's just frustrating.
Yeah.
Or going into real estate. Real estate's frustrating.
Yeah.
They're all frustrating. Having a job is frustrating.
Yeah.
But is this the job that is worth the frustration for you? And if it is, my experience is that so few actors do the work of really immersing themselves and focusing themselves that the ones that do work. It's actually not hard to bridge that gap, but so few actually do that.
Right. And it sounds like by doing these things, because I also don't want to do the pretend game where like, I'm working and you walk around like Blanche Dubois and you're I'm on set today. I'm fine.
It's really to embody for yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
I
right,
get
right.
it.
Yeah.
Listen, it's stupid.
But it
but
makes sense that pulling, and of course, I mean, that's how it feels. That's how even it felt this pilot season, being on a pilot, reading it, putting it on tape. You're like, that's how it feels.
That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like it's sporadic.
And
so what you're saying sounds really helpful.
Right, to make it less sporadic,
which
just
is within my control.
Practice.
Which is within my control.
And also you should, and if you love it, then you love it. Then you want to do it. Then you want to do it because that's fun. Because
how do you get your hands on the scripts and stuff?
All over. You can still get things on Showfax, which is really great. The tracking boards, it's a subscription-based thing. It's not very much. And it's a writer's service. And they just list all the scripts that are available for people to read or whatever.
It's really interesting. Because one of the things that's coming up, if I don't have to go after the thing that I really want, then I never have to face like real disappointment.
Right.
But then I feel like I did go after it. And then it didn't happen the way that I wanted to. So I did get that disappointment, right? So now there's something about going after it again that feels like almost setting myself up for like,
well, I will say,
kind of coming over here again.
But I will say there is logic to, I mean, I think that people do forget trends in math. You may not have been in your best casting at that time when you went for it.
Right.
And that could be a very logical, very reasonable thing.
Right.
When I was like ready to roll, a writer's strike happened and an economy collapsed.
Yeah.
And I took that very personally. And I have been told my whole life that my casting would happen in my 30s and beyond.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You see what I'm saying?
No, I know because I'm starting to pick up plays and those roles of those guys that I was always too young to play.
Yes, now you're fitting into.
Yeah,
yes.
And they're like the glove just fits.
Yeah, I would just, instead of having your tape that you're playing in your head right now, which is, well, it didn't work the first time, so why would I ever think that it was going to work the second time? Have it be, it didn't work the first time because there were things that weren't ready yet. But now those things maybe are.
Yeah.
And maybe because they are, now is the time for me. So common. I mean, we just listened to a podcast with Brian Fuller, creator of American Gods and all those others.
Yeah.
And he was just talking about, how hard it is to keep the passion alive because you just get beaten by the studios and then you put your heart and soul into something and it's easy to then not want to show up for your work anymore. It's really easy because it feels like it doesn't matter and nobody cares.
Yeah.
And that is something that all artists, particularly in this business, go through. That's so much of the work, is to keep yourself believing in yourself and inspiring yourself and not let the past experience taint the future one.
It was easier drunk.
I'm drunk.
No, I said it was easier drunk.
Yeah, it was easier drunk. I thought you're like, you're drunk.
Like, no. When you have doubts, you're like, yeah, all right, there you go.
Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? Like,
100%. Like, it's hard when you have like an audition that goes really bad to not think that your next audition is going to go really bad.
So when you first started doing this, right? Because this clearly has evolved. Mm-hmm. When you first started, when you looked at it and you were going from that place of like, my talent is this, my resume is this,
yes,
and blah, blah, blah. What were the first few things that you did that kind of gave you an entry point? Was it walking around the studio?
No, I'd say the first thing I did was I noticed that I wasn't getting called in from workshops and all my friends were.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because of my acting. And so I knew that it was a casting problem. And so what I did is I started reading pilots. And when I started reading pilots, I realized that there was like formulas and that there was like stereotypes. And I realized that I didn't fit any of those and that I had a very unclear product. And I realized I needed to really clear up what my product was. And so then I started to investigate my casting and I went in a couple of circles And yeah, I just started the process of figuring out the casting, which I think is the hardest thing to do. Then knowing that I needed the tools of that casting via headshots and resumes and footage. And then I needed the reps that could do things with that. And it's just an evolving process. And as I did that, I just sort of went problem, solution, problem, solution, problem. So problem, I'm not getting called in for workshops. Solution, figure out my casting by reading scripts. Problem, I don't have any credits. Solution, go to a smaller market where I can get credits. Problem, I need to get bigger and better auditions. Solution, I need more footage that can show that I can do that. Problem, I want to book a series. Solution, I need to be as good at auditioning as the girls who've been auditioning for a series for years. So solution, working on auditioning for 2 years, right? As though I had as many auditions as they do, even though I don't. So before, you were like 60-40, quitting and staying. You're leaning more towards quitting, and now you're at?
I'm not quitting.
You're here to stay.
Yeah. I mean, the notion that I'm even sort of contemplating quitting is I mean, I guess I get it the way that you were saying, like I think about quitting all the time, but I'm not quitting. My entire life has been structured to do this.
Yeah, that's right.
It's still structured to do this.
That's right.
It's still what I think about all day long.
Yeah, that's right.
It's still what I do all day. The thing that's interesting and the thing that I'm walking away from is I'm going, okay, so I'm in a class right now with the theater director working on a play. I do a scene class on Wednesday nights.
See? Now
That's
you're
about
seeing
a play.
it. See?
Right?
That's right.
And I'm like, oh yeah, it's acting. So it's just acting. It's acting. But it's like, you know, and it makes me think about the genius of Leslie Kahn, of the fact that you were always working on
television.
And what was current.
Exactly.
Right?
If you guys could hear that, that is everything, because this is what most actors do, is they feel like they're doing the work. Because they're in these scene classes and what that really is you're actually doing what feels more comfortable to you right now, which is this theater world with these theater directors and these working on these plays. And I get it, because the love making that happens with the play is this beautiful thing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
But if what you want is television and what you're focused on is theater and people who focus on theater, then you're just a little bit split. And that isn't to say that people who do theater don't book television. It happens all the time. But usually that's because you're on some fucking play on Broadway, or you're at the Geffen, and somebody sees you. And if you want to go that route, then I think that's a particular route. If you say, I want to get on television, but I want to do it through the theater route, then that's fine, but make that choice. Don't have the default be, I'm going to do these plays, and then hopefully maybe I'll get some auditions. And there's great work happening in television. Focus on that. Focus on what you bring to that, and how you are going to provide what is uniquely special about you.
That sounds very clear.
Right?
Yeah, that sounds very, very clear.
And I'm so glad we got to that, because that is what so many actors do. Because we come from theater, and so we stay in this like theater world, which is all very gratifying.
Yeah.
And part of what happened when I got out of scene study, when I stopped, because I quit theater. I was like, I quit you, theater. And I stopped doing scene study. A thing that happened when I stopped doing that was I was like, oh, fuck, I got to act. I got to start acting. How do I act? How do I start acting if I'm not acting in scene study? How do I start acting if I'm not acting in theater? Well, I guess I better go get fucking acting jobs. How the fuck do I do that? So it hurts. It hurts to love something and to want something, and to feel that there's something in the way of it that you don't know how to solve yet, and to wait for the answer to come to you, and to know that it will, and seek it out and then solve it.
And be willing to be open to it.
Exactly.
Because I think sometimes we get so scared, like, you know, like you're saying, like letting go of quitting theater or doing something. We're so scared to be wrong or make a mistake
100%.
or do something that, you know, even if you hear the answer, there's so much resistance.
Well, I really think about, like, they talk about Coca-Cola it is worth it for them to spend $2 million on an ad and then know it doesn't work and then shoot another one. That's not considered a loss. It's part of the work. It's part of how they're the best, is that they spend the money to figure it out. They spend the time to figure it out. So when I was figuring out my casting, I took that approach because I spent a lot of time and money thinking it was casting A, and I was wrong. And then I spent a lot of time and money thinking it was casting B, and I was wrong. And I invested in reels, and I invested in headshots. I invested in all these things, and I was wrong. But I didn't take it as a loss. I took it as part of
the learning
and the creative journey.
Right, because there's no end to it. There's no destination to it. You don't get it, and then it's over and then done. It's over. Right.
Like,
this is like you said, the career. Like you said, the career is not like now it's not happening, and then I have a career.
Yes, that's right.
This is the career.
The career is all of it.
This is the career. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
And so for me, to take this sort of business approach of it is a business investment to invest the time, energy, and money to find the solutions. Because once you find the solutions, then you're on to the next level. But if you are unwilling to spend the time, money, and energy to find the solutions, then you will never move to the next level. So it's not a loss. It's an investigation. So for everyone looking to hire the great Scott Victor Nelson, where can they find you online?
Well, you can find me on IMDb, right? And my reel is up there. Wait.
One more.
There's something. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
For all of this. I didn't want to come back again after we decided that I was coming back again. And like, I was literally in this place of like, why am I going to do this again? Why am I going to put myself through this again? It hurts, right?
It does.
And I want to thank you because I feel like I had a fear, like you were going to yell at me.
Everyone's so scared I'm going to yell at them.
I know. And you didn't. And what you actually did, which was really, I don't know, I feel like what you're doing is really generous and is very kind, and also the thing that I'm most touched by is how honest you're willing to be about yourself. And that to me is what I think probably makes you so good.
Thank you.
And B, helped me get to, this is really what we're talking about. It's not something out here. It's this. Just look at, is this lined up? If I'm pointing the compass towards France, but I want to go to Spain, but I'm moving towards France. I'm gonna end up in France. Then I'm gonna go, where the fuck's La Sagrada Familia?
Yeah.
Why is it not here? Right.
That's right.
Or even like So I feel like you were. Thank you for taking so much time.
Sure.
And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for your willingness to. It's very vulnerable, and part of my, I guess I could say, when people talk about like intentions behind what you're doing, like I have a real belief in transparency in this career, because I think transparency is so lost behind publicity. And the feedback I'm getting about the podcast, and that is part of my intention, is just the honest discussion about where we all are all the time, not just as actors, but as writers or directors or any of it. And this guilt and shame and self-flogging that really keeps us from moving and keeps us sad or right. And I think that if we were all just like way more honest with each other about all of it, that actually we would all be more empowered.
Yes.
And in being more empowered as a group, I think that as a group we would create more, we would do more, and then more would be the results.
Yeah.
Because we wouldn't all be so compressed within ourselves.
Yeah.
From feeling like we're not doing enough, or we feel bad for feeling bad, or any of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And there's just not, from my experience, a lot of honesty happening out there about the journey for people. And that makes people feel lost and ashamed. And I just don't think actors should feel that way. I think the role of the storyteller is a beautiful and powerful role.
And really important.
Super important. And last questions?
Do we get our wrap up? Do I get to tell you something mildly interesting?
Yes, go for it. Let's do mildly interesting.
Are you watching The Leftovers?
I haven't, but I hear they're incredible.
So the series finale was last night, and I stayed up till like 3 a.m. to watch it because I was rehearsing, and then I came home. I want to talk about it. I wish you watched it. Shoot.
We don't, but we'll tell people to watch Leftovers. My mildly interesting is about the SAG-AFTRA app on your phone.
Yeah.
It's so great, you guys. I just want to say I have zero faith that SAG-AFTRA would ever create something for a phone that would at all work, but it works. And it has a residual tracker button on it.
Nice.
So you just click it and you see if you got money coming all the time.
Nice.
So download the SAG-AFTRA app on your app store. It's free, and sign in and follow your money.
Cool.
Awesome.
Go see In the Valley of the Shadow at Rogue Machine for the Fringe Festival. It's a great play. Alina DeSantos directed it. Great cast. It's loosely based on the Pulse nightclub shootings.
Oh,
and
cool.
It's really good.
Great. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thanks for having me, Audrey.
Okay, I'll talk to you soon. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we talk to a dear friend of mine, Falk Henschel. He is a working actor. He is known as Hawkman from the CW series, and also he just booked a lead role as the lead villain in the new Robert Zemeckis movie. And I am going to discuss with him falling in love with the business side of acting. He is somebody I've really watched be just as grumpy and shitty as anyone could be about the business side, to really loving it the same way that I do. And we discuss our mutual journeys from hating the business side to loving the business side. I think that you'll find it to be really interesting. And if you are struggling with the shitty business, fuck you business side of acting, really give this a listen. I think you'll really be inspired. We talk about who has inspired him to look at this career as a business.
I always compare it to my mother, who was a doctor. She didn't make money in when she's studying in the first 5 years. Mm-hmm. She didn't even make that much money when she did her internship and then was a doctor. So it took her like 10, 15 years to have a career. So yeah. I wish actors were told this.
And one of the most valuable things he does that I do, that he wishes all actors would get it through their thick heads and do.
It makes me think of investing money into your career.
Can we talk about investing money into your career? That is such a big
Actors.
Special thanks to Scott Victor Nelson for coming over and for giving us his time and his heart and being patient as we really work through everything. I just wanted to say also, this is something that they used to say in acting class that I really appreciated. Don't take somebody else's lesson as your own. If this speaks to you, then that's great, but just do a little check-in with yourself. I don't want everyone who's doing a play or everyone who's in scene study class to think, oh my God, I gotta get out of there and gotta go do television. Scene study and theater are really valuable tools and a really great foundation to be set. So this is really a discovery that we had for Scott, about Scott, something that I came to similarly in my own life. That doesn't mean that you're in that same place or that it applies to you. That's what's so complicated about an actor's journey, is that they're all so unique and individual and deserve a lot of individual attention and time. This show is produced and edited by Jesse Lumen. He is a writer, director, producer, and virtual reality genius and wizard. If you are creating a current virtual reality experience, please look him up and get in contact with him because he is on it. Also, special thanks to Thomas Snodgrass for the mic assistance and providing us with an extra mic here and there. And special thanks to Aalok Mehta for all of his help and work on the theme song. Music this week by Ari De Niro. Most importantly, don't forget your towel.